It's not his game. He doesn't care.
There's no board. There's no board to check him.
No.
There's no share price to check him.
There's a desperation aspect of this to me. It seems
yeah.
really desperate, or as we say in the vernacular now, thirsty. Because as Caitlin mentioned, this provocative image that he tweeted about, I think it was a Jesus, and there's someone tempting Jesus, a woman, and
I can hear you guys talking around. This is a sexualized image, right, that he's posting, and I think it's a really good example of the thirst thing you're talking about, which is look at me, eyes on this. Advertisers, look, eyes are still on this. Stay with me by any means necessary.
It makes you wonder
what he's done here.
Is it just probably a combination? Lack of a plan. I think it's poor planning. There is no plan. And thin skin is basically what it is. And just making what up as he goes.
A few years later.
Ooh, child. Let me read it to you. So he starts off by saying, I've heard you, and today I am back. Bigger, bolder, freer. My new media company's first project is The Don Lemon Show. It will be available everywhere, easily, whenever and wherever you want it, streaming on the platforms where the conversations are happening. He then says, and you'll find it first here on X, Twitter, the biggest place for free speech in the world. Come on, Don. Don, you don't... He continues, I know now more than ever that we need a place for honest debate and discussion without the hall monitors. This is just the beginning. Stay tuned. Well, honey child, Keith Olbermann wasn't having it because he was the first person to reply. And he says, on the same day that Elon Musk suspended half a dozen journalists, including Ken Klippenstein, without explanation. Then he goes to say, which I had to redact because Keith Olbermann was getting nasty. He says, you, Don, you're working for the enemies of free speech. Y'all, it's about to be a showdown. Now, somebody else had replied and said, the biggest place for free speech in the world, in quotes. She goes on to say, do you even believe what you posted? I've been censored for years. You know this isn't true. I don't know what kind of deal X and Don Lemon had cooked up, but stay tuned.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about Don Sweet Tea Lemonade, the disgraced, fired CNN anchor who is now in the unemployment line, okay? Because Don Sweet Tea Lemonade is back, right? He's coming back, and I want to talk about this story because this is fascinating, okay? Because this is an example of how the pendulum always swings the other way in politics. I try to tell you guys this all the time, okay? When you get too much extremism, right, what happens is that it tends to reverse in the other direction and starts to affect the people that vouched and supported the extremism in the first place. And that is what's happening with free speech, okay? As Don Lemon has announced that he is coming to X, right? He's relaunching his show on X. He's following the footsteps of Tucker Carlson, who has seen a lot of success launching his show on X. And now Don Lemon is deciding to do so because of free speech, right? He's saying, look, I want the free speech to be able to come on my show and say what I want to say. Now, if you guys remember, Don Lemon got fired for a series of, I would say, inappropriate comments on his show and behind the scenes. Apparently, he was a gay misogynist, right? The women on the show didn't get along with Don Lemon, okay, which to me is, again, a fascinating thing to think about. I mean, a gay man can't get along with women. Apparently, again, he was a gay misogynist. He also made sexist comments about Nikki Haley being past her prime, which, hey, were true, right? I mean, I agree with Don Lemon on that, okay? Don Lemon was kind of based. He also made comments about women's sports and how it's just not as entertaining as men's sports. That also triggered the feminist on his show. And the last straw for Don Sweet Tea Lemonade was when Vivek Ramaswamy was on the show and they were discussing the Civil War, and Don Lemon made a comment regarding Vivek's race as an Indian man trying to speak on Black history. Don Lemon basically implied that because Vivek ain't Black, he can't speak on Black history. And that was the last straw for Don Lemon Sweet Tea Lemonade at CNN, and he got fired, okay? I mean, he also had disaster ratings as well. Nobody was watching his show. That's probably the main reason he got fired. But again, Don Lemon, sometimes he had some base takes, and then other times he was just just the typical woke journalist on CNN. Okay, now here's the thing. Okay, if Don Lemon actually gets back to the old Don Lemon, I'm talking about like OG Don Lemon, where he was agreeing with Bill O'Reilly with takes like this, I think that his new show may see some success.
It's time now for some tough love on the subject.
The reason there is so much violence and chaos in the black precincts is the disintegration of the African American family.
He's got a point. In fact, he's got more than a point. Bill?
Raised without much structure, young black men often reject education and gravitate towards the street culture, drugs, hustling, gangs. Nobody forces them to do that. Again, it is a personal decision.
He is right about that too. But in my estimation, he doesn't go far enough. Because black people, if you really want to fix the problem, here's just 5 things that you should think about doing. Here's number 5, pull up your pants. Number 4 now is the N-word. Now number 3, respect where you live. Start small by not dropping trash, littering in your own communities. I've lived in several predominantly white neighborhoods in my life. I rarely, if ever, witness people littering. I live in Harlem now. It's an historically black neighborhood. Every single day I see adults and children dropping their trash on the ground when a garbage can is just feet away. Just being honest here. Number 2, finish school. You want to break the cycle of poverty? Stop telling kids are acting white because they go to school or they speak proper English. Over the course of a career, a college grad will make nearly $1 million more than a high school graduate. That's a lot of money. And number 1, and probably the most important, just because you can have a baby, it doesn't mean you should, especially without planning for one or getting married first. More than 72% of children in the African American community are born out of wedlock. That means absent fathers. And the studies show that lack of a male role model is an express train right to prison. And the cycle continues. So please, black folks, pay close attention to the hip-hop and rap culture that glorifies everything I just mentioned. Thug and reprehensible behavior. A culture that is making a lot of people rich, just not you.
Yo, that is one of my favorite takes of all time, okay? I got to keep it 100. If Don comes out with his new show talking like that, then he might get some views, right? He might actually get some clout. He might have the juice, right? But if Don comes out with takes like this right here, this take right here, okay, in which, Don Lemon, ironically, peddles the woke mainstream liberal media narrative about Elon Musk and free speech being a threat, right, to this country, which is the take that basically Don Lemon went with when Elon Musk first bought Twitter, which, again, ironically, Don Lemon is benefiting from, then I don't think that Don Lemon is going to get too many views, okay? Again, because this is what he was saying, again, ironically, when Elon Musk bought Twitter, which little did he know would actually be the key to him reviving his career, because X/Twitter actually allows free speech, which again, that's kind of why Don Lemon got fired, because he wasn't allowed to say true things about people like Nikki Haley and women, right? So let's actually watch this.
Twitter says it has agreed to sell itself to billionaire Elon Musk in a $44 billion deal to take the company private. The world's richest man of Tesla and SpaceX fame, signaling a new era for the platform. Musk tweeting out a statement, and I quote here, "Free speech is a bedrock of a functioning democracy, and Twitter is a digital town square where matters vital to the future of humanity are debated." I mean, I don't think anyone disagrees it should be a free and open debate or platform, but I mean, should it be necessarily a font for misinformation or to, say things about people that just aren't true?
Apparently, yes, according to Elon Musk. Yeah,
Wow.
I think so. That's what he's saying. He's a free speech maximalist. Now, a lot of people, it's very difficult to moderate, as you've seen. People sort of have these fights over it. The left and the right are arguing over it. The right talks about censorship and shadow banning, which there's been no real proof of yet. Maybe Elon will unveil it in some fashion. But I mean, one of the things is that what's happened is when anybody gets to say what they want, anybody gets to say what they want. And that can lead to some really ugly situations, especially on digital media where people feel a little bit more unfettered and maybe a little addicted to it. So
and anonymous.
Anonymous.
For hate speech. You think he thinks that hate speech should be free to be blasted over Twitter? You think we're going to go there?
I don't know his rules. They seem to be headed in that direction. Twitter had a bunch of rules, many of which they didn't enforce at all. And I think that was one of the issues. Is Twitter had a lot of rules and it was very arbitrary, very difficult. Millions of posts are being done at any one time, and same thing over at YouTube or at Facebook, et cetera. And it's a very difficult issue, content moderation. And some people think there should be more, and some people think there should be less. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. This is the less guy, the one who thinks all speech needs to be free.
Yeah, you seen that, you heard that. Isn't it amazing? Absolutely amazing how leftists actually realize the consequences of being against free speech when it affects them. This is why I try to tell you guys, the best way to red pill a leftist is just to give them what they want. Okay, Don Lemon was essentially fired, again, because of low ratings, but also, again, because of the things that he was saying. It's not like, their network is doing any better, right? That morning show is still a ratings disaster with or without Don Lemon, okay? And the females on that show haven't been fired yet. He got fired because he was saying things that the network really didn't like. And because he knows that being a part of mainstream liberal media, that his speech is confined, he can't really say what he wants to say. Him being fired and now having to start his own show, to be out on his own, now he realizes the importance of free speech, right? Now he realizes the importance of somebody like Elon Musk buying the platform and allowing free speech, when before, when he was on CNN, he was questioning whether or not, is Elon Musk going to allow hate speech and misinformation on the platform? Right? Straight up Democrat Party, left-wing liberal talking points. Now he's benefiting from Elon Musk allowing the hate speech and so-called misinformation on the platform. He's launching his show on the platform, right, to revive his dead career. Again, it's fascinating stuff. Life comes at you fast, Don Lemon, okay, as I stated here. But what I also want to talk about with you guys is another left-wing journalist who is facing the consequences of free speech not being allowed on mainstream liberal media, who may also end up starting a show on Twitter to save his career, is Mehdi Hasan, okay, who is now quitting MSNBC after being fired from his own show. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with what happened to Mehdi Hasan, he got fired from his own show because apparently his ratings were very low, right? That's probably the primary reason, just like Don Lemon. But he also was saying things about the Israel and Gaza conflict that, the mainstream liberal media really didn't like too much, okay? So with that being said, he's now announcing that he's quitting and moving on to other ventures. So let's actually listen to this.
It's been an absolute blast doing this live show on MSNBC for the past 3 years with an amazing team of producers behind me and with all of you watching at home. It's been a privilege. It's been a pleasure. But as we begin 2024 with an election coming, a war still ongoing, and too many Trump trials, honestly, to even keep track of, and with this show going away, I've decided that it's time for me to look for a new challenge. Tonight is not just my final episode of the Mehdi Hasan Show. It's my last day with MSNBC. Yes, I've decided to leave. To be clear, I am so proud, so proud of what we've achieved on this show, on this network. And I can't thank you all enough for tuning in and for your support and for your feedback. But as I say, new year, new plans. You can continue to follow me online at Mehdi R. Hasan on Instagram, on Threads, and of course Twitter or X, where I'll give you updates on what's coming next for me.
Yeah, so anyways, with that being said, again, this guy got fired from his own show, okay? And one of the reasons why he got fired from his own show, according to the left, is his views on the Israel-Palestine conflict, okay? And the fact that he was constrained in what he was able to say on the network. This is what the left alleges, because it just so happens that MSNBC pulled all their Muslim anchors off at the same time when that conflict first got started again, okay? Around October 7th, when the attack happened, they pulled a ton of the Muslim anchors, and the left was claiming that, hey, they're censoring free speech, right? MSNBC is censoring the Muslim anchors, and lo and behold, Mehdi Hasan loses his show. Now he is quitting, right? In which, wouldn't be surprised that Mehdi Hasan, just like Don Lemon, essentially goes to the platform, turns to the platform that he criticized for being too pro-free speech to revive his career, right? I just got a feeling that, again, this guy, just like Don Lemon, again, will be groveling to Elon Musk and coming to X in order to save his dying career. But one thing I find fascinating about what's happening, and I kind of like why this is happening, because I've stated this before and I'll state it again. One of the reasons why, the mainstream liberal media, people like, Don Lemon, and Mehdi Hasan, and a lot of these so-called journalists, they really don't like people like Joe Rogan. You guys remember how the mainstream liberal media was losing their mind over Joe Rogan during the pandemic, and the fact that Joe Rogan was getting hundreds of millions of viewers and listeners while their ratings were in the tank. Okay, they were so upset because Joe Rogan doesn't have a degree in journalism. He's just a podcaster, basically, and they were jealous and upset. Okay, and they were trying to say, well, Joe Rogan is not a legitimate source of news. You shouldn't listen to them. Again, a lot of it came from jealousy and hate. And I've always wondered, okay, well, if you guys got the juice like that, then you should be able to have your own audience. You should be able to get an audience outside of the mainstream liberal media. You should not need a whole network propping you up to get an audience. So now we're actually going to see if these people really have the juice like they believe they have the juice, right? This is why I'm curious to see how Don Lemon relaunches his show. I predict that Don Lemon is going to be kind of like a Chris Cuomo. He's going to be an enlightened, not so woke centrist, right? I think that's the direction that Don Lemon is going to go. He's still going to be woke, but he's going to be reasonably woke, right? I think that's going to be his angle, okay? But it'll be interesting to see if he can actually get an audience, because a lot of these people, again, they're propped up by the mainstream liberal media. They don't have a real base. People don't really care about them that much. That's why people weren't tuning in to watch Don Lemon. That's why they weren't tuning in to watch Mehdi Hasan, okay? Because if they was actually getting ratings, they were actually getting viewership, then most likely they probably would not have gotten fired. Now, again, with Tucker Carlson, he was getting viewership. He had high ratings, but he got fired anyways because the woke advertisers were boycotting his show, and Fox News was like, well, we can make more money by firing the guy even if we get less viewers, right? I mean, that's probably the main reason Tucker Carlson got let go. But with that being said, his viewership followed him on his new platform, okay? So he has the juice. He's proved that, hey, I don't really need Fox News. I can get viewership elsewhere. Can Don Lemon and Mehdi Hasan do that? I highly doubt it, but it will be interesting to see how they rebrand and relaunch themselves moving forward. So, hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.